Hey there, everyone, and welcome back to another astrology video. So, this is the week prior to Mars hitting the brakes and stationing direct, a moment I'm sure that a good majority of us are really waiting for. While this event doesn't happen until next week, the 24th here in Australia, 25th in the Northern Hemisphere, I really do think we're going to sort of brace for impact this week. And that's what I'm going to be talking about in this video today. Before I get into that, though, I just want to thank new subscribers to this channel. And if you haven't subscribed already, please feel free to do so. And if you've been here for a while, thank you. It's always great to have you here. I would also like to mention that on March 12, we begin a new group of people who are willing or wanting to learn astrology. So, the Contemporary Astrology Program Year 1 is my beginner's program. Of course, you don't have to be a complete beginner to start. I have plenty of students who feel that they've got a good grasp of the basics of astrology who go on to do that course and are very glad that they did. Now, I have Jupiter in Gemini on my ascendant, so I'm always blending the technical and the philosophical. And so one point of difference that I do try and bring to astrology in general, and when I teach it, is not just teaching you the technicalities of things. It's also helping you to develop your own philosophy on astrology, stuff to do with your worldview, bringing in a whole lot of modalities to help you sort of deepen and broaden your perspectives on astrology beyond houses, planets and signs, even though those are imperative, of course, as well. In the year one program, there's also probably what most would consider more advanced modules too. Things like synodic cycles, lunar phases, fixed stars, essential dignities. So by the time we finish that program, usually sort of 8 to 10 months, you'll be able to do a really solid chart reading. We meet up about every fortnight and we discuss whatever's on our minds in astrology. So it could be in-depth chart interpretation, questions about the program. It could be whatever is happening in the news, and how does that relate to the astrology. So I'm all even in the beginning phases of astrological learning. What I try and do with students is teach them with the end in mind. So I'm always sort of what I call seed planting, planting seeds for you to help develop your knowledge and wisdom beyond just the basics. And of course, those who complete year one can go on to year two and what other uh, specialized offerings I have as I create those. So if you would like more information, the link will be in the description below. Of course, there's the payment plans, pay in full options, and all that stuff. I would love to have you on board. We start March 12, which would be March 11 in the Northern Hemisphere. And yeah, if you've got any questions, feel free to pop them in the comments, contact me via my website, and I'd love to have you on board. Okay, Mars. Mars has definitely been the planet that we've been blaming uh, for everything since December when it stationed retrograde. So overall, the energy of this week is actually rather quiet. We have the sun move into Pisces, we have a couple of Mercury aspects, but overall, it's a really quiet week. And sometimes there's a really beautiful method in the madness. This is really in aid of preparing us for what has been, for the most part, a pretty crispy transit for the good majority of us. Mars in Cancer is in that position known as fall or depression. So that's not a moral judgment on Mars, and I've done plenty of videos already on that. Even one about how to work with the worst planet in astrology and giving Mars in Cancer some love because it's not all bad. But in terms of what Mars wants to do, it wants to take action. It wants a fight. It wants to move on with its goals and its desires. It wants action, it wants progress, it wants momentum. And Cancer, it's emotional, it's water, it's a feeling energy. And one thing, it's a little bit of a personal ethos I have, and it's not something that I hold all the time, but when it comes to our goals, the things that we really want out of life, let's be honest, usually our feelings, our goals don't care about our feelings. As a personal example, I've been cutting weight so far in 2025, started January 1, and there's been plenty of times I wanted more wine, more chocolate, more whatever it is that I've wanted. And that's what I felt like, but my goal was more important to me. And I just had to go, my goals don't care about my feelings. And so that's kind of what's a little bit tricky about Mars in Cancer. As I said, there's plenty of videos to get a little bit more of an analysis on that. But I can't even talk today. My overarching idea with Mars in Cancer, it hasn't been in isolation. And the reason is that this Mars in Cancer, from a technical perspective, and I've mentioned this before, is probably one of the more technically challenging sign planet combinations for Mars, in terms of essential dignities and what have you. Whereas by June, we move into, on paper, the best astrological transit we have. So that's Mars in Cancer, retrograde, moving into Jupiter in Cancer come June. So we go from sort of the very worst to the very best. And oftentimes it is through toil, it's through disaster, it's through the challenging moments that, if we could choose, we would probably rather not go through. That really does create the magic for, wonderful blessings, wonderful progress, and wonderful gifts. It's hard to see that when you're in the midst of it, though, but I think we can all trust and believe that it will be there. So, from a technical standpoint, Mars will station direct at 17 degrees of Cancer. So, I'd say if you've got a planet maybe 15 to say 19 of Cancer, or any of the other cardinal signs, that's Aries, Libra, and Capricorn, you're probably going to really feel the crunch this week. Now, astrologically, um, lost my train of thought, so I'll come back to that. There were so many things I want to try and say in a relatively short amount of time. So 17 degrees, and what probably makes this so crispy is that Mars stays at 17 degrees for just shy of a good month. So it went to 17 degrees back on the 12th of February last week, and it stays there until about the 9th of March. So not only is this a station direct, but it's a station direct technically that sort of lasts a month, where that degree 17 of Cancer is going to be active for that period of time. So I was really thinking about how could I describe this? I mean, astrologers will often say that when a planet stations either retrograde or direct, its significations are intensified. The planet becomes more obvious. It's like, okay, well, the word intensity gets thrown around a lot in astrology. But what could we look at this like? So, say, for example, when we are flying in an aircraft and it lands. And so the landing is always the anticipation. We're in the destination, whether it's a holiday destination or you're returning home. And especially if it's a longer flight or an arduous flight, thank goodness it's over. And then you start to do the descend and then you hit the tarmac, but it's still not over. So the station direct really feels like the wheels hitting the tarmac, but then the plane has to use all its power, use all its velocity to hit those brakes and bring that plane to a halt. The takeoff and the landing is the most challenging part for the aircraft. And we could perhaps expect that this week will feel a little bit like that. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel. The wheels are on the tarmac, but we're not quite out of the woods yet. And I think in some respects, um, this month-long station may almost feel like, when you get stuck in the plane for a little while, you can't get to the gate, and everyone's agitated, everyone's frustrated. It's not like it's just touchdown, seatbelt off, and then grab your overhead locker stuff and out you go. It's like you're a bit stuck on the aircraft for a little while. So it's not a case of, yeah, Mars is direct, everything's dandy. So another way to think about this too is that The last time Mars hit 17 degrees was a very brief stop. It was only on October 6 and 7 of 2024. So it just passed over that degree real fast, but sort of the area, sort of around 16 to 19, was, let's just say, the first 2 weeks of October. So if you can cast your mind back to then, that might be what you are having to deal with again now. What's on the table for you, what's coming to fruition or completion. But remembering we're not there yet. So this week, even though the astrological events are kind of rather quiet in terms of aspects and things like that, on the 8th, sort of the 19th and the 20th, we are moving through a grand water trine. Mars in Cancer, we've got a stellium in Pisces, and the moon will come through Scorpio. So this will probably be the more emotionally, perhaps reactive, just that letting that one sort of outburst or that one little, we got to discuss this, or my feelings are a little bit more complex or agitated or tumultuous before we get that clarity of the station. So it's just a little bit of a heads up there that the moon in Scorpio might activate this aspect this week, particularly because of the reception between the moon and Scorpio too. But this could also be the connecting of the dots, that healing, that one last whatever it is, hitting the brakes of something, or that one last closure, completion. And it doesn't have to mean an ending or a separation or anything like that. It could be, okay, what's this one last task or this one last thing we have to go through or move through before we can kind of put this retrograde cycle to bed. It could also be the last sort of revelation or revealing of whatever barriers have really been holding you back during the Mars retrograde. Yeah, okay, and that reminds me, that's where I'm circling to with that thought that I lost before, is that a big part of this cycle, um, from my perspective at least, and how I've been talking about it, is really removing, cutting away, burning, severing some of the defenses that we hold up that protect us. I'm a Cancer, and above all, we are self-preserving signs. We'll put that exoskeleton up, we will protect ourselves, we will defend ourselves to the hilt. Now, that's all well and good, but sometimes our defense mechanisms can also be exactly what blocks us from everything that we want. And so I feel that wherever Cancer is for you in your birth chart, and we all have it somewhere, even if you don't have planets there, is very much the cutting away, burning away of the old memories, the old feelings, the old defense mechanisms, so we can kind of expand that vessel or crack open that shell and let the light of Jupiter come in a few months' time. So this week, I feel, is that sort of one last break, or that one last revelation, or that one last connecting the dots of what this entire cycle has been for you. Now, I'm someone who doesn't like to see anything really in isolation, try and, keep the big picture in mind here. And there's so much about the astrology that, and just the vibe that the energy is right now, whether you're very astrologically clued in or not really at all. And even people that I've been speaking to who aren't at all are all sort of speaking to this idea, is that feeling of precipice, that feeling of change, but it is everyone's kind of holding their breath, waiting to exhale, and because no one knows what the future looks like, because so much astrologically is changing. So just to kind of paint a broader perspective, that's the bin collection here, the rubbish collection. If you can hear some crashing noises out there, garbage man's here. So uh, Mars stations direct 24th, 25th. And as that happens, Venus hits 10 degrees and she enters her shadow, and she's preparing to retrograde, which will start in a couple of weeks' time. So there is very much a handover, takeover aspect happening between Mars and Venus. I'll probably talk about that more real soon. So while there is a renewed energy and momentum, there's also that reflection perhaps on values, attitudes, upgrading, the desires of attraction, which is a very Venusian thing. Now, we also have Uranus as a Gemini rising. I'm so feeling Uranus. It's still at the station degree. So it's stationed earlier in the month of February. Was it February? Oh no, it was late January now. So it's stationed at 23 and it's still at 23 and it will be there until mid-March. So this is a long station for for Uranus too, which is normal. But I think what makes this particular one feel such a turning point is that it's going to be making a beeline for Gemini. So entering new territory for the first time since 2018 and 19. So I think that's a tension and a build up. And while things may feel slow and frustrating or, like rattling your cage kind of thing, I think once that cage is open, things are just going to move so quickly. So if you have key Gemini features in your birth chart, or like myself from a Gemini rising, it certainly does have a strap yourself in type of energy. And I get tired thinking about that. But anyway, we also have Jupiter in Gemini, still at the station degree. So Jupiter stationed in Gemini 11 degrees early this month. So it's been moving very slowly so far in 2025, but it'll be at the very end, just a few days after Mars stations, Jupiter will move off that station degree. So it's sort of this slowly, some of these bigger outer planets are starting, in their own pace, they are edging towards new territory. While Jupiter is super slow now, it moves super quick in 2025. So it's going to be just getting more and more velocity, progress, and momentum. It gets as far as 25 degrees of Cancer this year. So Jupiter's going to be doing big things as well, just not yet. And then finally, Saturn. So Saturn at present, I think, is at about 19 degrees. And the same day that Mars stations direct, Saturn moves to 20 degrees of Pisces. It hasn't got that far yet. It stationed retrograde back in June at 19 of Pisces. So it's moving into new territory. And of course, it will be making a beeline for Aries, which will start in May. Now, I haven't even gone there with Neptune, but I'm hoping that that's giving you a little bit of a feel for just how much of a precipice we are on right now. And maybe cut yourself some slack if you're feeling a low level anxiety about things, or if you feel that you have been lacking in momentum or progress. For my money, 2025 hasn't even started yet. Who cares what the calendar says? It doesn't really start until Mars gets a move on. So that's probably all I have to say today. And I do hope a few of those ramblings have maybe helped you connect a few dots in your own mind about the energy, how you can move through this week. I definitely think it's an easy does it type of energy. Be gentle on yourself, connect to your feelings. Maybe sort of like connect to them in your body when an emotional situation comes up or a feeling comes up, and just really, how is that feeling for me? And approach it from a place of, I don't want to say consciousness because it feels a bit passe, but awareness rather than reactivity, which I think has been the big Mars in Cancer lesson for many of us. So anyway, that's it for today. I hope you found it helpful and insightful. And of course, if you would like to learn more about what's involved with the Contemporary Astrology Program, do please be in touch with me. Send me an email, write me a comment, and feel free to sign up if you really want to jump right in. I would love to have you on board. I'd also love for you in the comments to just share some experiences with Mars retrograde. How's it been? How have you been leveling up? And how have you maybe sort of been preparing your proverbial astrological soil for some of the benefits and blessings of Jupiter in Cancer come June? I think we'll all be very much looking forward to that one. So I hope you have a really wonderful week, and I'll see you in the next video.